Hi, Glenn Gary, the Victoria EV Association here. Last November, the city of Victoria, BC took delivery of Vancouver Island's first electric fire truck. After a few short months of testing, training, and real-world trials, we were invited to check it out.
The driving experience is like nothing else. It's quiet. It sounds like you're on a tram. Like we've touched before, is that this is a from the ground up design. So they really started with a clean sheet of paper. So the vehicle's narrower. It's not as long. It has a shorter wheelbase. The visibility is just incredible. So rather than taking something else and modifying it, they just started from scratch with a clean sheet of paper, and it's there's nothing like it.
Right on. So looking around the cab here, you've got seating for 5.
Yes.
And they're all like 5-point harnesses and crash seats, it looks like.
Yeah, you can have more seating in it. As you've learned about fire trucks, nothing is standard. So you can have more seats in the back if you like. Ours was actually the very first one to have that center-facing seat. They had to do crash test, pull testing on it to make sure that it could withstand the G-forces of it. Mm-hmm. In Europe, you can actually have 2 seats on each side here, so you have more seating. But in North America, we require more width to the seating positions, so you're only allowed to have 1 seat because there is a minimum seating width that you're allowed.
Right.
So the manufacturer is limited by that.
Yeah, I think this is amazing. You guys would do en route attack planning.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is a whole lot easier if you can actually hear people.
100%, and that's why. It's just standard in North America to have the intercom systems so that you can hear. Obviously, in the RTX, the sound responding is not really any different than we're talking right now.
Yeah.
And so the improved communications is just incredible. The seats will rotate. Obviously, the driver's not going to rotate his seat driving, but the officer can rotate his seat and have good communication with the crew en route to the plan of attack. Of course, the flat floor is a huge advantage.
Oh yeah.
It's actually quite common for the driver and the officer to enter through the back doors like a bus because it's so much easier to entry getting in and out of it.
Okay, so yeah, the electric drive and everything, but the Rosenbauer is sort of like a diesel electric submarine, in that if you did need more power from the battery, you can run that from a onboard diesel.
There is an energy backup system. So first of all, the drive system is all Volvo. Volvo Penta supplies the drive system, so it's a proven drive system. There's like 4,000 plus buses with this system. But being a fire truck, just like a diesel fire truck, you need to be able to basically pump indefinitely. And obviously with electric, you can't do that indefinitely, so you need some way of replenishing the battery power. So it does have a 105 kilowatt energy backup system. It's powered by a BMW diesel, 6-cylinder diesel. And it's just seamless. But the vehicle is always running electric. So even though the diesel backup system is running, it's not actually powering the vehicle. It's replacing the energy in the batteries.
Yeah. It's kind of like diesel electric submarine.
For sure. Yeah.
It's all electric drive.
Yeah. Same with the pump system. The pump system is all electric driven.
Right. And again, with what we do, we touch a lot of different industries that are doing things. The movie industry now is going towards not having a diesel generator that they have to try and sound suppress somewhere on site to provide all the power to a production, and they're going to batteries in a small trailer. That might be an idea. Here, fire chief, here's something you can do. You can drag the battery there because we're going to be on call for a while.
Yeah.
Go from that. Is there a way? It probably would be a way to do that.
Pull a trailer.
Well,
pull a trailer.
But have a trailer connect into your main traction battery and charge it while the rest of the system's operating.
I suppose you could.
Yeah.
I guess it would take quite the battery pack to do it.
Oh yeah. You'd want to have a 250 or 500 kilowatt.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
But this is the way they're doing it now.
Yeah. How far back was it that the idea of trying to get EVs into the fleet?
It was right around pandemic time, right? 2020?
It was pre-COVID that we saw the first concept.
We saw the first concept, yeah.
We weren't even looking at it.
And we weren't really looking at it. Yeah, that's true. And then we had an opportunity through our fleet replacement schedule to look at some options. And I want to say it was around 2020, 2021, where we really started to say, maybe we should be looking at this technology and seeing what's out there, at least as an option. And,
Right.
so we reached out to our partners in fleet management, and we had a conversation about how we could structure an RFP to give us some flexibility to look at both an internal combustion engine and also evaluate that against a electric vehicle that might be in the marketplace as well. And so when the RFP was structured, it was really just asking for what options were available and then pricing on both. And we went through and we put that out to market in, I want to say, Simon, do you remember, was it 2021?
Late 2020.
Yeah, and the RTX was the successful proponent on that based on all of the factors that we took into consideration.
Right on. And how much was there a council push or inclination was supportive of that?
So I think the short answer is yes. I think that, the desire at the time, and certainly I think that I might defer to Simon to maybe speak to a little bit more about our green initiatives and what that looks like. But I think that remembering back at the time, it was, look at these if they make sense, right? Obviously, if they didn't make sense, if it wasn't balancing, then, if we had to go with an internal combustion engine, then certainly we would. But I think that we wanted to make sure that we did our due diligence to make sure we took a good look at the market and see what was available, where the value for dollar was, and what the longevity of the project would
The
be.
big thing there is when we're looking at any vehicle to replace, renew, we look at what the options are on the table and we try and make the best decisions operationally. In the aspect of the RTX, Corey was heavily involved with that first acquisition, and from a technical side and then the operational side as well, making sure that there wasn't going to be those negative impacts. And the RTX platform definitely showed that it wasn't going to have that negative impact. The other thing that's happened over the years since then is that the market's really changed. The industry's changed. Battery electric's taken off, obviously, in many ways, but the industry has become a lot more expensive. And for an economical side of things, EV is becoming more affordable as well. So there's a few things that I can mention, but what we evaluate against our operations is to ensure that it makes sense operationally, it makes sense fiscally, and we compare that against what the ICE equivalent is, and we do the total cost of ownership piece. Right? It's not about the purchase price only. It's not about the maintenance price only or the fuel savings only. It's the whole package, and evaluate that as an entire package.
What were your corporate and societal goals with it?
Well, from my seat at the time I was the deputy chief operations, and so from my seat, my primary concern was, is this going to meet our operational objectives, right? And that's where I was unclear, I was unsure at the time, right? I wasn't too sure how it would perform in the market or how it would perform in our conditions, how it would perform on our streets. There's obviously you're dealing with the rumor mill and speculation, and you're trying to make sure that you're moving forward with good informed information. And so, I relied a lot on Corey to provide me some insight from his seat as well. We looked at what they were doing in Europe, in Berlin. We looked at the Berlin truck, which was a very close comparator to what we were doing from sort of a call volume and a call type perspective, and looking at the performance of that, because I knew that was going to be the primary thing. If this was something that we moved forward with, and it fell short operationally, that's a tough one to recover from, right? So we had to make sure that this was going to meet our needs and deliver first and foremost. So from where I was sitting, that was the primary driver. It's just, is this going to meet our operational needs? Is this going to serve Victoria for the long term?
Right. And like firefighting, there are many different appliances to meet the different needs, and would it be able to do all of them? Probably not. Can do many of them, good, and let those other ones catch up as the market catches up.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe Corey, you can provide a little bit of extra context there, but I would suggest that certainly from my memory, I can't think of anything that operationally underperformed or didn't perform or didn't deliver on.
Completely right. That's the thing is we couldn't, we had to be able to pump a certain amount of water per minute. We had to be able to carry so much water. We had to be able to carry so much hoses, so many ground ladders, and we didn't have to sacrifice anything. We can still do everything from a firefighting perspective that we could do with our current diesel trucks, and carry more equipment.
Yeah, I find it's really interesting because when you look at the Rosenbauer, it's a very tight unit, and when you look at its North American equivalent, it takes up 3 city blocks just to park. And that is one of the operational requirements. If you can get into a space that another vehicle can't, that sure makes a difference, I imagine. Yeah. Not that this truly matters to the fire department so much, but your average sort of risky pumper, how many kilometers a year does that log? Ballpark.
Well, we have around 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah. Just back to what you're saying too, like as far as meeting the things, it doesn't actually meet them. This vehicle actually exceeds them all. It exceeds everything that we were doing with our diesel trucks. And yet you're in a smaller package.
Yeah.
And then you have all the improved visibility, the ergonomics of it is just like second to none compared to anything else that we have.
And
it still pumps just as much water, still carries just as much water, still everything that we could do before, it does better.
And your crew isn't having to go out with sound deadening earmuffs on and drive everywhere.
In my 22 years here, this has been the most excited I've ever seen the members for a new vehicle, ever. There's been no negativity whatsoever.
Yeah, so people aren't saying, I'm not gonna ride in that thing.
They actually had to sign up to be on it. And more than half the department wanted to be on that truck. So.
That's awesome.
We had a discussion around mileage because one department, and you guys can elaborate on this more than I can, but I have some experience in understanding this. So one department may have more mileage but less call volume,
Yeah.
while another department may have way higher call volume and less mileage,
Yeah.
right? And it's the operational need more than anything else, than the mileage, than the hours, and
Yeah,
that sort
yeah.
of thing. So when we talk about mileage for, the layman to understand what that means when they see mileage there and it's only that amount, most people scrutinize it because it's not getting much mileage. And then there's the ULC standards that come into place for having the need to have upgraded equipment for your underwriters insurance and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot to it. And Victoria, they put it in the #1 hole, one of the busiest holes there is, and you can speak to the call volume, but it's...
Yeah, and you're bang on. We're by far the busiest fire department in the region, and if you look at this from a per capita, you probably almost any metric you want to measure it, whether it's population based, per firefighter base, or whatever it is. We do have extremely high call volume relative to the size of our city, and so we are doing that rapid turnover piece. City of Victoria is only 19.4 square kilometers, and last year we crested 12,150 calls, right? And so we're going on a response, out of 3 stations, we're going on a response every 30 to 40 minutes, right? And to Simon's point, with #1 station being located where it is, a lot of the service we're providing is to the downtown core, which is our main service driver. So the truck's seeing a lot of quick turnaround, short runs, but a lot of them in a day.
Yeah.
We really don't, departmentally, I don't think we have a lot of negative to say about it. Steve was responsible for the rollout of it from an operational perspective. And, certainly, just to reflect on, I think that Corey really summarized it best, is that, we recognized that this was going to meet all of our needs from an operational end, but it was also all these value-added pieces that we didn't really realize initially, right? And, he touched on something, and it's just really that end-user experience. By the end user, I'm not just referring to the firefighters that are riding it, but I'm also talking to the public that serves, right? And it's a great piece out on the... I've been on calls before where, we've had to shut our truck off because, we're pumping diesel exhaust into a scene where we're performing a medical or something like that. And so, it really is not only meeting our needs operation, but it is those value-added pieces that go on to it. And then to Steve's point, what we saw a huge uptick in our morale in the department, right? People were signing up to be first on this truck, right? They were really excited to be the first crew that was going to get to be able to put the truck in service and provide service to the city of Victoria. So it's been pretty special. I think you'll see that we're all pretty collectively proud of it and happy to have it.
Well, the RTX is clearly the star.
Yes.
You have other supporting players.
Yep. We do.
And they would be.
Well, we have our fast response units, which I can let the Deputy Chief Operations talk about. There's largely part of his. And we also have our fire prevention fleet too, that I think sometimes gets overlooked, right? And so we've got a series of electric vehicles that provide service to the entire city for fire prevention inspections, code compliance inspections, public outreach, and education. From an electrification perspective, I think that we've got one of the most electrified fleets. When you look at our total fleet capacity, we've got an incredibly large percentage that is fully electrified right now. But the latest and newest addition to our operational model is the Ford Lightnings that we're rolling out as fast response units.
And we just started that model, so we leaned on Vancouver and Surrey, and then LA as well. Actually, LA is the innovator behind the fast response, and they just proved that it was more efficient, and Simon was nice enough to help us get 2 Lightnings, and then Corey built this, like, no other way to say it, but like a really sick looking truck. Like, it's a nice looking truck.
Yeah.
But what we didn't do, which some of the departments did, is they loaded it up with equipment. Like, you look at fast response in LA, it's fully loaded for bushfires. Vancouver's got one, but they're just using pickups, and then Surrey ran like F-350s with little pumps on them. So we just got a light duty truck, really, that's responding to medical calls in a really tight city with the equipment it needs to do medical calls.
Okay.
And that's what we're using those for, very efficiently, and they're just great looking trucks.
Right on. Any chance to use the power offtake of the vehicle, those capabilities in that role? Or?
I don't know if we'll need it. I mean, we've only had the one in service for 3 months now, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty new.
Yeah, so I'm sure as things progress.
Right on.
Like Chief mentioned too about the prevention. I mean, our prevention is 90% electric. There's only one internal combustion car left.
You guys have already alluded to it, but the operations and maintenance side of the budget, compared to the diesel units that are, or the internal combustion engine units that are doing that, are you seeing good savings there in both man hours and equipment required and time and everything?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the difference with like the RTX that we still have to experience. I mean, it's under warranty for the first year, so we don't have to do the work on it ourselves yet. But it's the annual service that's going to take the man hours. It's like a 2-day event to go through the truck from bumper to bumper on it. So, that's a different PM schedule or service than what you have with an internal combustion engine. You're not changing the oil and greasing it like every 4 months that we currently do. So it's just a more lengthy service at the end.
For the internal combustion, do you do that internally?
All of it.
Okay. And the Rosenbauer, you eventually will take that on.
Yes, once the warranty's up.
Right. Imagine it's going to be a lot of plugging in a computer to get continuity.
You'd be surprised though. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's only ancillary gear that needs that check, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many components to it, so there's a lot to it. That's why it takes 2 days to do it.
Right. But that's once a year as opposed to how many times?
We still have to bring them in as a part of our maintenance program, but the lengthy service is once a year.
Right.
You need to do that on regular fire trucks as well.
Yes.
Once a year.
Yeah.
So it's no.
It's the same. It's just there's more on one end and then like spread out throughout the year. It's a difference.
Okay, cool. How's the public responding?
We'll go around the table, but the feedback I've received has all been positive. When we first rolled it out, we did a bit of an unveiling here, we did a little bit of a press release, and what I reflect on from that day is some of the news media that was here, they went across the street and they were intercepting people as they were walking by and sort of asking for their opinion, and I don't remember hearing a negative one. And overwhelmingly when people are walking by in front of the station, if we have an opportunity for a face-to-face interaction, they always point at it because it's such a unique looking vehicle as well. They always ask about it, and I've seen nothing but positive. I actually actually haven't had an interaction with anybody from the public that's been a negative interaction on it, but that might just be me.
Nor am I. And I know some of the other departments that when they rolled the truck out, people would stop and ask if that's the electric truck, like LA and Vancouver. We were lucky when we rolled ours out. We relied on information from Los Angeles, from Brampton. Vancouver was great, and then my favorite city, Rancho Cucamonga. They were great. They shared a lot of stuff with us and also kind of guided us in the way to roll it out where there would be excitement around it, but the public, they were excited. They stop and ask questions and kids point, yeah, it's exciting. It looks like a transformer.
It does. I mean, at the beginning in Austria, the factory was nicknamed Bumblebee because it does look like Bumblebee, the transformer. And I think even the guys you were talking about in the media, I think they even said it looked like a transformer or a bee. So
Yeah.
it definitely has that look to it.
Was there anything about your experience with the truck that you weren't expecting?
I'm going to defer to you on that one because
I would say the crew was just surprised how there was no noise. That was a noticeable thing about it. Driving, talking, it was like a kind of a calming event as opposed to a loud diesel engine, and that was without the lights and siren. But that was one thing that I heard crews when I did check-ins with them. They said it's just so quiet and it drives so nice. Like Harold said it best. He goes, "It's so smooth to drive."
What's your end goals for your fleet transition? Or is this a question for you?
The big thing is we don't know what we don't know right now with a lot of things. There's a lot of uncertainty in the future of things. What we do know is that there's a lot of success in what we're doing right now. With the Ford Lightnings, and I'll speak from a city standpoint, not just a fire department standpoint, but we've now got we're cresting close to 100 vehicles that are either EV or in production to be EV. So we've chosen this way because it makes sense for our city. The Ford Lightnings make sense for certain applications. The Chevy Bolts made sense really early for fire prevention applications. The RTX made sense to go into, so much so within a short period of time. The next vehicle that came up for replacement, it was almost a no-brainer that we were going to go that route for the next one. There's certain applications that it just might not fit. But the technology also is advancing so quickly, it might fit. So I definitely wouldn't stick my foot in my mouth to say where we're trying to get to, where we want to get to, but we are going to look at every case and determine, make the business case of why we wouldn't go EV first.
Right.
And that's kind of what we're looking at. If the business case shows that it doesn't make sense to go EV, then it spells it out for us.
Yeah.
But our council's initiative through the Green Fleet Plan is to work in that direction, and that's part of our plan, is to work in that direction. And government agencies and regulations that are coming into play are still up in the air and can change any minute. So for our city and for many of the applications, it makes sense to go EV, and that's where we want to go. And we've got a lot of support on the infrastructure side of it as well. So that's the key.
Most of my question, but it's kind of just in addition to what Simon said, like like an aerial apparatus, for instance.
Yeah.
They don't make an electric aerial apparatus yet, so you can't buy an electric aerial truck. So you can't necessarily buy an EV for every application at this point in time. Not in North America.
How hard would it be, do you think, now that you know how the Rosenbauer works?
It's probably no different. It's just that they start with one package and they need to focus on that package first and prove it, to get all the quirks out of it and stuff. So I think it's just a matter of time before. I mean, they've built them. They've built concept ones in Europe, but in North America, I'm aware of there isn't one yet.
Yeah. So you're retooling everything. Can you make an EV aerial? Yeah, you can probably hodgepodge some stuff together to make it become, and that's what some of the concepts were. And not just in the fire industry, but also, in crane truck and bucket truck industries. They've hodgepodged some things together. But when you've got like the RTX that's ground up built as an EV, it makes all the difference in the world in how it functions. and the support and longevity behind it. So you know you're going to go down that path for a period of time. And what we don't want to do is just go EV just to get an EV badge on it. We want to get the right vehicle, the right technology, the right operations all supporting it. And that's, we've seen that in a couple applications. Everyone that is making the EV initiative has probably made some of those jumps to try and go down that road, either prematurely or not with all the facts, or just because there's initiatives behind it. And then you got to figure out what those next steps are to ensure. And for the manufacturers, I feel for them more than anybody else, because they're the ones that are in that stuck position. We have to put an EV badge on something, and that can hurt their industry. So.
Yeah, enthusiasm isn't enough. It has to have a well thought out plan, and dipping your toes in, figuring out the things you didn't know about, and then solving those problems before you get further into it, for sure. I love this job. It's not a job. In that, because it forces us to go down a lot of roads that we may not have in our previous tours. And I was shocked, I tell you, at the amount of customization that comes in fire appliances. I figured, okay, I want a pumper rescue, I want to do this, and they go, okay, that's on this line. Well, we're doing a batch of 50, and you'll get one of them. It seems like every one is unique. It's like
those companies were around, but they didn't survive, right? Those companies were around,
Yeah, they flourished in Europe.
but they didn't survive, right? And the one thing about Rosenbauer is, you have to remember, for them to start making a ladder, Simon's correct, but they also have a Panther technology that they have EV technology that they could build. They're busy enough.
Yeah.
They're probably good right now. They don't need to start building, ladder trucks, right? They're good. So, what was it? Every 7 hours, they roll a conventional fire truck off their assembly line, and every 7 days, they roll an electric.